principles. My guest on today's show isn't a first-timer on Head On. He was here a few weeks ago when we took a hard look at building national security at the grassroots. As we talk impacts of electoral violence on local council economy, security expert Fyneface will be on the saddle shortly. Join me after the break.
For almost a decade, the Nigerian army have argued the country is overrun by Boko Haram insurgents, resolute and undaunted. And today, all territories the insurgents have been recaptured and normalcy restored. And now, for the first time in a long time, the end of Boko Haram is foreseeable. Therefore, the wisest thing for the remaining insurgents to do is to surrender today or face total destruction from the army. Remember, the Nigerian army will stop at nothing to ensure that total peace is restored in all parts of the country. So, be wise and embrace peace today or get ready to be ruthlessly dealt with. This message is brought to you by the Coalition on Conflict Resolution and Human Rights in Nigeria.
Glad to know you are still here. In 2012, elections into the offices of local government councils was marked by irregularities. It was chaotic to say the least, and anything but free and fair, with elections taking place in only 2 of 11 local government areas in Gombe State. Of course, the People's Democratic Party won all, leaving few councillorship positions for the opposition. 79 electoral wards had no opposition at all. As it was in Gombe that year, so was it in Kaduna State also. For Kaduna, the PDP won 22 out of 23 local government area chairmanship positions. But away from history, the recent primaries at local council ward levels for the All Progressive Congress turned violent, leaving scores dead and others wounded. It is important to note at this point that governors and presidents emerge from this level of government. Sadly, the process that throws up these officials is often flawed, as party delegates are determined by the governors, overseen by local council chairmen and councillors whose elections are rigged. Delegates are bought and paid for, and they do the bidding of governors, not their constituents. As a result of this, control of political power and funds of local government areas is a vital necessity for state governors. This is the single most destructive source of subversion of our democratic process. Instructively, a township or local government isn't just another level of government. It is the critical layer, the foundation. It's the one that represents you, myself, your family, and our family, our lives within its budget, and provide the services we all ask for. Nothing more and nothing less. Once again, welcome to today's edition of Head On. Stay with us as we will expand the conversation shortly with my guest, Fyneface, a security expert who would like to see himself as a social affairs advocate.
Probably good.
For almost a decade, the Nigerian army have given their all to ensure that our dear country is not overrun by Boko Haram insurgents. Some have in the process paid the ultimate price, while many will forever live with indelible scars occasioned by their determination to protect the country, no matter the hurdle. Despite these, they have remained resolute and undaunted, and today, all territories the insurgents once took control of have been recaptured and normalcy restored. And now, for the first time in a long time, the end of Boko Haram is foreseeable. Therefore, the wisest thing for the remaining insurgents to do is to surrender today or face total destruction from the army. Remember, the Nigerian army will stop at nothing to ensure that total peace is restored in all parts of the country. So, be wise and embrace peace today or get ready to be ruthlessly dealt with. This message is brought to you by the Coalition on Conflict Resolution and Human Rights in Nigeria.
Thanks for being there. Mr. Kevin, let's drive straight to the point. The recent APC World Congress, of course, we are all witnesses to what happened. The thing that seems to trouble me is, why do we have a repeat of this scenario time after time?
Well, if you look at the congresses and the primaries that just took place last week, the pockets of violence here and there, and that is because there's actually a deliberate attempt to continually misinform, diseducate, and leave the electorate in their ignorance. Because for crying out loud, if an electorate understands the power behind the voters card, you do not have to go into violence in order to show forth your followership to someone whom you perceive to be your leader. For the case of Rivers State, you saw two supposedly friends, now enemies, because of political interest, and their followers engaging in violence. Some claiming that the police provoked the actions that took place and all of that. It means, so we are getting this repetition. It's history, they say, repeats itself only when those who are supposed to know fail to do the needful as they've been informed. Has there been any architecture put in place in terms of elections and an electoral process to forestall? We've been having a lot of violence every year, every now and then that we have elections. Has there been any deliberate attempts in terms of design, electoral process design, to frustrate, forestall, inhibit violence and criminality that comes with elections? No. What we do is that after all of this, they will do maybe panel of inquiry, do a report to that effect. Some people will collect money, and the story ends there. There have been lots of reports coming from violence-related elections and all of that. We've also seen cancellations of elections as a result of that. But there hasn't been any deliberate attempt, security-wise, to see that we don't allow things like this to continue. If you look at the case of Ekiti State, for instance, there was no proper access control mechanism put in place. Ordinarily, for the fact that it's supposed to be these primaries, what is expected of that body is to ensure that only delegates who are accredited and given the right pass are given access to the venue. But you saw it was an all-comers affairs, which means they're not properly prepared, or that they had the funds for it and someone didn't do what it's supposed to do. The case of Rivers State is the same thing. There should have been some form of intelligence report as to know what are the likely scenarios. So we'll do what they call risk analysis. What does the risk analysis say, of these different centers where we've had violence? Because there should have been, knowing that there was going to be congresses or primaries, there should have been risk analysis done by these bodies. The agencies responsible, the security agencies, should have also done their own risk analysis and be prepared way ahead of time. Look for ways to inhibit such kind of moves. But with the outcome, it's obvious that there was no risk analysis done, or there was and never implemented. I mean, the reviews that were given out of that were not properly implemented or were not implemented at all. So that's why we're having this repeat of history. And I think it's actually high time that we, the people, should take ownership of the electoral process and understand what it means to become a follower. Differentiate. Leadership is about service. You're not supposed to be subjugated to your leader. No, you're only supposed to help him grow. So he brings out his vision and you help him to fulfill that. It's not subjugatory style. It is supposed to be based on service relationship, where both ends are service. So until the electorate takes ownership, we'll be having issues in that regard, and history will be repeating itself.
One thing that seems that appears to be a denominator in all this is why at the world level? Why the world level? One will, of course, naturally expect this at, given our level of political understanding, one will expect this at probably the state level or the federal level. Why
This is supposed to be, this is partly what happens in the scenario. Everything about politics starts from the world level. You can't take that away. And that is because the people at this world level are also not properly educated. The fundamental right of the electorate is not properly known, they are not well informed. You know, the agency responsible for that should have been basically the National Orientation Agency, that should have taken the electoral process, bring that as an education and enlightenment, to educate the electorate on the needful. But they don't do that. They don't do that. What they do is that they just say, so you see all of these people are all camping. They are like the scavengers at the dump sites. You know, once you get to the dump site, there's nothing like civility. It is the first to get there, or the first to grab a particular container, an item that is of value to him. So all of this thing you see at the world level is basically scamping, because they believe that what they are doing will be for the good of their, in quote, masters. We're not supposed to have masters and servants relationship. You know, but that's what the political system has turned it to. Currently, what you find is that you find a scenario where they say that the electorate see these people in quotes as their masters and are willing to do anything just to prove. And when I saw the death over the weekend, I was pained in my spirit. These are avoidable deaths. I agree that death is a certainty, but these are avoidable deaths. If the security agencies have done the needful in collaboration with the political parties, these deaths would have been avoided, because there would have been measures put in place to frustrate such efforts. Two, why would the politicians, in quote, who call themselves the masters, be looking for a way to circumvent the process? Because you have access to central power, you utilize that at the expense of doing good democracy or allowing for the process to do the right thing. It's wrong. So not only the followers need to be educated, I think also you have the leaders also need to be educated, to a very large extent.
Okay, let's do a quick connection here. Over the weekend, I was going through some literature, and there's one that says violence in politics through poor leadership, and poor leadership through poor governance.
Okay.
And that translates to poverty and infrastructural decay. Now, with all this breeding from the roots, what are we looking forward to for the local government especially? What kind of representation do we look forward to?
You see, I like the phrase you just said, violence in places we support poor leadership. What else do you expect? If I can get what I need to have with any means necessary, it means I don't need to follow through the process. If we do not institutionalize the process and ensure that only people who are truly qualified and the security agencies work in hand, put person with the agency, with the commission, for instance, INEC can only do the little they can do. They are not an enforcing agency that will say, okay, you have to know. They only collaborate with the security agencies. And it's even an error for the security agencies to wait until the INEC invites them. It's an error. Looking at the peculiarity of our terrain, environment, right from 1960 elections, there always been violence. Because those who are not qualified are the ones who have always vied for those offices. And because they are not qualified, they use talks, violence as a means to scare off those who want to come and vote or those who are contending against them. So what they now do is the superior power takes the order of the day. And once that happens, the next thing that you see is that you have poor leadership. And so because you have people who are not just only half-baked, they are not half-baked. You have people who are misfits for governance in any form, get into a position of authority, and you know when they say power, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. They get into a position of authority, the first thing they want to do is to show for their vindictive tendencies. Why? Because they believe that some person will give them the way. So now that they are there, they'll prove to them that they have power now. So they use the authority to them to excessively use that power on people at the detriment of the political good of people. In so doing, they spend more money than necessary without budgeting. And when you spend money without budgeting, there's always a chance for you to not have any infrastructure. Or if you have infrastructure, not to maintain those infrastructure, because the first priority that you have is to recoup the money that you have spent through the process. The money you gave to the thugs, money you gave to other people that to buy the process of the process. You want to recover all that money. And when that happens, there's no enabling environment created for economic activities to thrive in that environment. So you see mass, migration of people from the rural area to the urban area, because there is no activity taking place in that locality. So what they want to do is to look out for, and if you get to the urban area, if there is also poor leadership, you see people in their drones dying on the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, just to cross over to Europe, where there's a similitude of leadership or infrastructure.
We are saying that the mass drift of Nigerians, let's come down to Nigerians, to countries beyond the shore, starts from the local government council.
That's it. That's where it starts from. So let me tell you this. By virtue of the current constitution that we pray, we're supposed to have a functional local government authority. You have this federal, the states, and local government. All of these organs, these bodies that you find, there's a responsibility of the local government that would have helped in the development of a particular state. Meaning the local government is expected to provide some measure of services, in terms of amenities, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education, some measure must be provided, because they should have been able to meet the needs of the people within their domain. And which is not a difficult thing to do. But there's a problem. If the head is sick, I told you last time, as a fisherman, you get to know that a fish is rotten, not from the size of the stomach, but from the head. Once you open up the gill cover, you will see the gills are bad. You know that the fish is bad. Then nobody tells you anything. Because we have failed styled governance from the top. You see the state government also looking for ways to have puppets that will man the local government structure. So those puppets will only do the things that the state government. So the local government are basically an appendages of the state government. And so their allocations are not given to them as it's supposed to be. It is given, but they also have returns to make. In doing returns, they don't have enough funds to do the basic things they should have done ordinarily. So you go to the local government, let's look at Abuja for instance, the FCT. The AMAC chairman is more like the governor of FCT, because the amount of funds that he has is huge. It's bigger than it's bigger than the normal local government chairman in Nigeria. He has the highest allocation to him. What is the effect of that such amount of money in the FCT here? If you want to know the effect, go outside of the city center and look at those settlement areas and see the impact of that money. It's zero. You know what they do? They do a few projects that are not people-centered. Because before you embark on the project, there should have been a feasibility study.
Absolutely.
That also will show you the environmental impact assessment of that project. And before you begin to implement. So everybody is carried along and the implementation of that project. So they take ownership. So what you find is that, people don't even care about what is there. So the people, the next thing they do, they buy vehicles. The same reason why you see the National Assembly, whenever they don't know what to do with the money that's been allocated for them, they buy vehicles ranging to 38 million naira. For what purpose? For what use it is? Is it for the Nigerians we don't produce, we don't manufacture any of these cars? For what use? What economic benefit is it for us to be driving vehicles that cost 38 million naira? For what economic value? And you go to the local government, they also have vehicles that cost up to 10 to 12 million naira. Give to these people. For what value? We're not manufacturers. You will say, okay, that will generate more employment, more revenue to the state.
Are you suggesting that this money should have, as we prepare to on short break, are you suggesting that this money should have found their way to the local government areas? And if they should, how best do we do that?
These monies are supposed to be distributed and ensuring that distributed through budgeted means to the local government, where they have concrete developmental projects to put this that will carry the people along. What makes an economy to thrive is an enabling environment. Not to give money to people, no. An enabling environment. Let there be life for people to use, to do things they want to do.
Doesn't that add up to what? Recently, a governor in one of the northern states started what he could describe as a poverty alleviation program. He gathered a handful of young men and gave them bread and set up tea kiosks. Isn't that part of the group?
Well, you see, that is actually an indication of the death of innovation and knowledge and leadership. If I were to be the governor to do such, what would I have done first is to ensure that we create an enabling environment to allow for people who have entrepreneurial skills to access needed funds, to establish the bakery, the farms for the eggs that we will need to use, and we'll put all these industries. Then we now have people who have the capacity for marketing and sales and give them the right perspective and empower them with the right tools for bookkeeping. And you launch them out so they also access the same funds. See, what he has done, here's what has happened. What the governor did in that state that you mentioned, which is Kano, for instance, it's Kano State, we need to mention names, that what the governor did basically created room for corruption to take place because the contract was awarded to those who went ahead to get these things. Someone was sorted out before this money was actually shared. And those people, they don't even know the items given to them, if it has expiry date or it has actually expired, before they found fair and everything. Some of those items would have actually gone bad because they're exposed to sunlight for a longer period than necessary. So it was actually a failed attempt to try to empower the people. It was only trying to play to the gallery. That in itself, it's an act of insecurity. Because what that will do, it will make a lot of young guys to assume that that is the way to leadership, and some other person will begin to do other things to want to get into that kind of rank. So look, this thing has a multiplier effect. The ripple effect for that act is huge. If I start dissecting, I will give you a lot of windows, how it relates to security and the economy.
Okay, Mr. Kevin, we're in a race against time.
Okay.
Well, let's go on this short break. When we return, I will go straight into what it takes to build viable development plan for local councils. Stay with us.
Welcome to Living Treasures Academy. Enjoy a conducive and serene learning environment. Qualified and experienced teachers. Equipped computer laboratory and library. Secured atmosphere. Extracurricular activities. All-embracing curriculum for total development of the child. Comprehensive education for leadership. Join us today from crèche to secondary levels. Living Treasures Academy, committed to excellence.
Thank you for being there. It is still heard on television Nigeria, and today we are dissecting the impact of electoral violence on local council economy. My guest, Kevin Fyneface, is someone who has a great grasp on the issue, and not just grasp, passion for it. Tell me, is it possible for would-be local or would-be state governors to ask local government chairmen to bring up viable development plan for their councils?
Very possible. You know, the constitution makes provision for where the local government council should also have their kind of a community-based legislative council. And that is why you have the councillors as legislative, councillors. Now, for every local government chairman that is elected into that office, that is qualified and truly elected, not those appointed as caretaker committee chairman, which is what the state governors do. They do that every year or every 2 years and change the next one. So for the whole tenure of a governor, there's no election to local government office. So what they do, they appoint people, and those they appoint only can do the bidding of the governor and those who recommend them for appointment. It's a known fact. So it's very possible for a local government chairman who truly have the vision, the passion for growth, to come up with his developmental plan for the period it will be. And he shows his baseline and his timeline as to how to achieve the needed growth within that period that is going to be either 3 years or 4 years, depending on how it is. Mostly it's 3 years. And it's very possible. But is that possible now? No. Why? Because the state governors are basically hijacked the process. The same reason why you don't find the local government area authorities being autonomous. They are supposed to be autonomous. Even there have been attempts to make them autonomous, and they themselves rejected it. State House of Assembly has also rejected such autonomy, because if they had done so, that would have been in contravention of the expectations of those who appointed them as caretaker committee chairman or brought them to become local government chairman and councillors. Don't forget, we live in a country where our style of leadership is purely more like an hierarchical style-based leadership, enmeshed with subjugation. You are not supposed to think for yourself, because the man who brought you is supposed to think for you, tell you what to do, when money is supposed to be spent, who is supposed to be. There's a story of the local government chairman who every month has to give a certain amount of money to certain persons, some ranging from 700 to 1.5 every month. So once the security vote comes in, the money is distributed in that direction. And so they now look for a way to do 1 or 2 projects, get a few persons, give them small, skills. Everything is bloated. You get for every contract that will be done, so that the money can be spent for something to get back to them. So at the end of the day, they don't just become local government chairman without anything to show for it. And that is because the community also will query, you are once a local government chairman, what did you do for yourself? So the quest for people, so we have a lot of issues. I said just before now that we need to begin to look at our family values and see how society can help itself to heal itself from this whole, what they call it now, subjugation.
Are you saying the greed, as it were? It's
not just greed. Not just greed. This is not just greed. This is basically misplaced priority. You do this work every day. You appear on TV. Your friends and family see you on TV. They think that you're making so much money. They expect you to have some kind of this. If you need to get married now, the woman will expect that you should have some level of assets, comfort to be able to. She will look at your vision. She will look at your prospects. She will be looking at the tangible that you have. Now, because she looks at the tangible that you need to have, community look at the tangible you need to have, you'll be pressured to want to do anything to impress those who are looking up to you. So you can come in here and maybe tell some stories and tell people that you're the organ of this place and begin to make some money. The same thing happens in the local government. Majority of those that have been in position of authority at the local government level are people who are not truly qualified for that office and do not have any business being there. but because the system allows such. There's reason why you find out that you can only read a certificate you need to become president of Nigeria is school set.
Is that wrong? Is that the sad?
No, it's wrong. Yes, it's
Why
wrong.
so?
Why? Because we live in a society that we've actually evolved over years. For 50 plus years, we've had people who are more qualified educationally that can meet up with best practices, not people who will be asked questions and will be answering a different question because they lack the coherent understanding of the question being asked. That is a problem. The measure of a country's intelligence is dependent on its leader. We should actually get that straight. Now, you might actually have a degree and don't have a content. So what do? We need to begin to take people through a leadership process and certify them qualified for public office before giving them that responsibility. So at the grassroots level, we should do that. In fact, we should start it from the primary school. Before you become a head boy or a head girl, you should have been disciplined when have seen things. So that is the build-up process. So by the time you come out to the tertiary position in your university period, you can now prove to us what you have done in the past. Records will show that you have the capacity. We cannot continue to begin to have accidental style leadership. In fact, I don't call it leadership, opportunism, because there is nothing like good and bad leadership. Leadership is about influence positively, and so there's only one thing, which is leadership. We need it in our local government area to begin to boost the economy of those region, thereby reducing the influx of mass migration from the local area, and also begin to affect the urban areas, affecting our infrastructure.
There's a point I want to zero in on here. A viable development plan for local government areas, will it in any way help in discouraging the incidents we witnessed at the APC Congress, the World Congresses?
Let me answer it with this proverb. In your family, if your dad had told you what everybody will have at a particular time, would there be anybody who wants to circumvent the process if you know what you're going to have? No. Very difficult, except of course, very criminal-minded persons. So if we have a viable development plan, clearly stated, and showing everybody's responsibility as stakeholders of that local government, it means that people will go out for elections or electoral process and wanting to make sure that they follow through the stated processes in order to ensure the end result that they have seen is achieved. Because there is no end result, so people tend to do whatever they feel like doing in order to satisfy those who have paid them a time service. What you see and what you saw happening over the weekend, which will also still happen, just mere congresses were having this heightened insecurity issue. What happened in 2019? The more reason I suggested that INEC need to get to the position where they need to do all elections in one day. Why? It will help to reduce migration and unnecessary thuggery everywhere. Because every election taking place at the same time, nobody will have the cause to pay another person to go commit unnecessary crime.
Absolutely.
So we should look into that. It's cheaper to do elections in one day than it is being portrayed currently, and it's being projected to carry out.
Okay, Mr. Fyneface, it's been a wonderful conversation.
My pleasure.
The conversation about issues in Nigeria is one that will never end. It's a running conversation. We'll keep having it. But as we wrap up the show, let's do the connection.
Okay.
All this we have discussed, how does it impact the economy of the local council area?
If what we have discussed is understood, and like I said, the baseline and the timeline is clearly stated, then we have viable development plan, which is accessible. That the little boy, the pupil in the primary schools understand what is coming within a particular local area. Having people begin to plan way ahead of time for the need to want to provide such similar kind of service. Lady yesterday, during the course of this police recruitment, she said right from when she was small, she had dreamt of being a police officer. And so yesterday was like a dream becoming a reality, and she believes she was going to get it. Because to her, she believes one person can change in that community and corruption can actually stop. And it takes just one person to do the right thing for the rest to follow. But the wrong has not been celebrated. The same reason why today, some group of boys and women, girls, will stay in a place for 3 months, and 25 million is given to them. Someone spent 4 years in getting the best 5.0 GPA and CGPA, and is giving just 10,000 naira. You see the misplacement of priorities and the destruction of our value system is a problem that we can address. So if we go along well, it will be that we can do the needful and ensure that our political process is properly taken into consideration, as much as we clearly state how our developmental plan will be, while at the same time disseminating same to all and sundry to know what role we need to play, so that we can all become an egalitarian society, a place where there's even development.
A place where everybody will have a sense of belonging. Mr. Kevin Fyneface, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It's always wonderful having you on the show. The conversation about Nigeria and about the things in Nigeria is one that is ongoing. But however it is seen, one thing remains sure, that the local government is the critical aspect of government that is closer to the people. This level of government impacts on the domestic life of the people. Therefore, effort must be geared towards ensuring the consolidation of the democratic process and democratic dividend at the grassroots level. That way, thuggery will be a thing of the past. That way, political violence will be a thing of the past. And also that way, Nigeria will be on the right track towards proper development. It's been your host, Benneth Joshua, on Head On Today on Television Nigeria. Until I come your way again, I say to you, join hands with me in making Nigeria a better place to be. Bye for now.